Hello,
Hey everyone, my name is Kate,
my name is Adam.
and this is this is Adam and Kate. We're not adding any hate this week.
No, this is so originally for this episode for this week, we had an entirely different set of things to talk about. Uh and
There's a
unfortunately,
there was a new Converge record to talk about. There's we wanted to talk about the Hellfest coming up, and we'll talk about those things, but um, it wasn't the time.
no. So before we get into this particular episode, uh it should be known that what we're going to talk about tonight, for this episode specifically, it is going to be very dark subject matter. We're going to be talking about things that can put people into a tailspin. It can mess with people's heads, mess with their progress from them getting over certain things. So, if you've paid any attention to the last 96 hours in hardcore, we'll be talking about both Bo and Brady and some of the mental health factors that might have led to the things that have happened. And we'll probably share some of our own personal stories involving mental health or struggles thereof. So I wanted to put that out there as someone who worked in mental health for almost 4 years. This is me saying, hey, if you don't want to watch this week, we'll do the regular episode soon, but this was something that we decided this was the important thing to do. So we're doing this first.
Yeah, we're I'm a, we're under no illusions that anyone is seeking out our opinions on this thing, but at the same time, you know, this is very much it's the elephant in the room. Hardcore is a very small world. Um, we couldn't just there is no possible way that we could have just rolled in here with jokes and pretending nothing happened. We record these things 2 days before they go up, you know? So um yeah, uh and with that as well, uh I am still not having the best time physically or mentally. Um to pull the veil back a little here, I deal with chronic fatigue and brain fog from long COVID. This makes my underlying um, anxiety condition and things like that just uh, it exacerbates those things, and so but this may be shorter than usual. I don't know yet. Um, but yeah, just want to cards out on the table.
And I'll throw mine out there. I have suffered from, at more than one point in time in my life, we'll say, not crippling depression, but wholly untreated for a long time through various tragedies throughout my life. Uh, Feelings of not total worthlessness, but lack of self worth from comparison to others. And, I am on meds finally, and way more leveled out. But my depression and all that stuff has stemmed from single digits, and I've carried it into now 46 years on this planet, and have had those potential. I don't want to be here any more days, even though I joke about it on stage as a comic. The serious version of it, we're going to talk about it tonight. So I think that's a good jumping off point. Would you like to start with Brady, or do you want to start with Bo?
Um, we can start with Brady. Um, I think just it chronologically. So if for whatever reason you're unaware, one of the founding members of Turnstile, Brady, has been um, very clearly struggling with mental health. for an addiction for some time. I don't think I'm saying anything out of school here. Um, I don't know the extent of it, but he was quietly removed from Turnstile a few years ago, before I think before they recorded the latest record.
Correct.
Um, and he had the circumstances around which were never made public. And then he returned with a new band a few months ago called The Set. And there was some noise about that, some energy behind that. But after a bunch of kind of unhinged social media rantings from him, he was removed from that band as well. And his spiral kind of continued, with a lot of really unhinged accusations against various members from the Turnstile camp, all culminating in this at the beginning of this week. Um, the headlines came out that he had been arrested for attempted homicide, and then it turned out that this was he had ran over the singer of Turnstile's father with his car. He is alive, but in critical condition as far as I know. I haven't really bothered to look into that situation too far because the details are frankly none of my business. Um, but Turnstile did make a statement saying, asking for privacy, but also saying, "Look, we tried to protect this dude's privacy and dignity even when he didn't really deserve it. We tried to get him, we tried to get him help, but he just didn't want it. Um, and we don't really have anything more to say anymore about this." It indicated to me a few things. One, I think the most important thing that it communicated to me is that you can't lead someone where they don't want to go. You can try your best to be there for somebody. You can try your best to help somebody, but if they don't want it, eventually there's nothing more you can really do, realistically. And for your own health and safety, it may just involve cutting someone loose, letting them go. You kind of have to be cruel to be kind. Um,
Which and that will fuck with you. You will have that weird, not survivor's guilt, but that something akin to it. You'll have that weird, like why didn't I do this when I could have done this? It's akin to survivor's guilt. I forget the exact term off the top of my head, but
yeah,
it is that is crushing. Um,
yeah,
I do like because we talked about this the day it happened.
yep,
Going messaging, and we even said, I wonder if they did something to help get him into treatment or to services or something, and they did. And that to me says that even with this guy who was part of their life for 10 plus years, for multiple records, multiple tours, even after all the issues that he had with Daniel and the end when he went off on him and all the other sketchy behavior, getting kicked out of the band, the social media tirades, then leading up to attacking Brendan's father, the fact that they were so patient and kind up until that one thing that you can't forgive someone for. I think that speaks volumes for who they are as people, not as a band, not as a PR thing, but there were clearly long-standing relationships there that they were holding out for that glimmer of hope, and
yeah,
it wasn't there.
yeah. It's yeah. There's a certain point of no return with these sort of things, and I might even say you can forgive somebody like that, but that doesn't mean that you're in any obligation to reconcile with them or ever have them in your life again. You know, it is, there are certain times when it's like, you know what, like I can't have you in my life anymore. um, you know, go with God, but go. Right.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard because addiction is one of those things that, um, especially you see it all the time. People will write people off as junkies, and it's sort of one of the few groups where it is like perfectly socially acceptable to say kind of whatever you want about people who are going dealing with addiction. Um, and it is certainly very, very difficult to see firsthand. There are some people out there that have the ability, the patience, the capacity to maintain relationships with people who deal with that stuff, but um, it's certainly not everybody, and I don't think anyone could fault the members of Turnstile for having to cut this guy completely out of their lives. And I think it says a lot about their character, exactly as Adam was saying, that they tried to afford this man more kindness and more dignity than anyone would have any right to expect.
It's wild because of the small room with the giant elephant that you spoke about when we started. Like I've seen my for those that may not know, I'm originally from West Virginia. I left, came back. Morgantown is my hometown. For those that don't know, the opioid epidemic, one of the biggest things one of the biggest places was West Virginia. Was had one of the biggest kickoffs,
Yeah.
and there were pain clinics just being opened up, and it went very quickly from hey, I got some pain pills to deal with an injury I got from work, to I don't feel like going to work, but I need my meds, to I'm only doing pills, to I now have a heroin problem. I have I'm homeless. I am doing things that I never thought I would be capable of because the addiction is a powerful thing, and it has ruined many, not only careers from people that we see in our small section of the world, but overall, it could be a coworker, it could be a friend, it could be a family member. Addiction is one of the few things that you actually have to say, I want to change. I want to stop. I cannot live like this. And it is hard
Yeah.
you can only bottom out so far before you can't bottom out anymore. And addiction will make you bottom out over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's often said that um, everyone has to hit their own version of rock bottom before they actually make a change. Um, and sort of the caveat with that, the hard truth that comes with that is that for some folks, their rock bottom is that they die. It not everyone is able to beat this thing. And it's heartbreaking to watch. Addiction killed my uncle. I never knew a version of him that wasn't damaged and addicted, and he hurt a lot of people over the course of his life. I have friends that beat addiction that are alive today, but and I'm grateful they're still here. Um, but you can't lead someone they don't want to go. It's impossible. You can. I see it every day. I work in a hospital. I see all the time people come in dealing with their own addiction problems, and they have to want to change. And not everyone does.
And
Because go ahead.
um, uh, I was thinking about wanting to change and stuff, and COVID did not help matters in this regard, but after
Mm.
the opioid epidemic kicked off in West Virginia, and then heroin became there was such a resurgence of it. Uh, I think I can stop at my fingers of how many friends I lost since that epidemic, specifically to that epidemic. I think I can stop at 10. That's not great to say or realize.
No.
These are people that were very close to me, lived with them for years, and then something happened. And I guess it's a simple, it's such a simple, slippery slope that goes from, hey, I got this 10 milligram pill. I have this condition now. This condition is too painful. Then it leads to more. Then it leads to drug seeking behavior. Then it leads to stealing. Then it leads to more stealing. And then it leads to hard drugs. And then it leads to even further down. And I watching people that I know that, again, that I know had futures, real futures, uh, watching them fall down that pattern, you feel helpless no matter what you do.
Yeah. And I think it's also worth saying here too that um, there is so much about mental health and addiction that we just do not understand. The human brain is a incredibly complex thing that we only can barely like we're only barely beginning to figure out. We don't actually know why it is that some people take opiates for a few weeks after their surgery and then let the last 3 pills rot away in a cabinet somewhere, and why other people end up on Kensington Ave here in Philly, you know doing nothing but packs of fentanyl. Like,
What is what for those that don't know what New Kensington is? Could you explain that? I'm sure everyone watching this may, but if you don't, if you
um,
could explain it to folks.
yeah, sorry. It's one of those things that you just sort of assume everyone knows about. So Kensington is a neighborhood here in Philadelphia. Um, on the eastern half of the city, um, and it is home to what is considered the largest open air drug market in the United States. Um, Between Kensington Avenue and Somerset Avenue, I want to say, right underneath the Market Frankfurt line, which is our elevated subway line here in Philly, um, is there's a massive unhoused population, and there is drugs available on every corner. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of there's a lot of pain. Um, and everybody over there will have a story that would break your heart if you heard it. So many of them had a different life before addiction caught up with them. That is one of the scariest things about a lot of forms of addiction. Opiate addiction in specific, is that you can maintain for a very long time before it before it takes over your life, and that is sort of one of the more insidious aspects of it. People won't realize that they have a problem until they do.
Did you happen to have?
Until
And I
it's
don't.
way too late.
Did you happen to have in your area? This was big from, I don't know, six to maybe 2011. Fly by night pain clinics popping up, just prescribing oxycontin and roxycontin and all the pain pills. Was that common for your area, or was that more of like a southeast thing?
If it was, I didn't know about it. Um, I, I, I spent a handful of those years living in Germany.
Ah,
Um,
a place that actually takes care of its citizens when it comes to addiction. Weird. Um,
Yeah. In Germany, opiates are very difficult to get. Um, they don't have there is there they obviously have problems with substance abuse and various things like that, but it is not the epidemic that it is here.
The reason why I asked is um, when I can move back from Morgantown to Rutherford County for the 5-ish, 6-ish years we stayed until we moved to Greenville. Uh, there were all these job hirings, job postings for pain clinic, no experience necessary. Pain clinic, no experience necessary. Clinic. Do you want to help people? And all it was I interviewed at one of these places.
Pres- Prescription farms.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like a true prescription farm. It was walk in, give money, show a card. There was no because I got suckered into wanting to work at one of these places. I just didn't know at the time till I saw it. And the language used by the person that interviewed me and one of the other staff members was, "Oh, this is ruining people's lives. There's no one's pumping the brakes. No one's actually making sure that things are above board." It was, and they were open and closed. Like some were open for like a year and a half, 2 years. But most of them were like 6 months or less. And they would move from location to location under a slightly different name, but you would see the same people at those places, not just getting prescriptions, but selling them.
Mm.
And the
That is
Sackhoff.
some.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that is something very much worth mentioning in this. With opiate addiction in particular, we're harping on this just because it's the biggest. It's the biggest problem. Um, there are people who are addicted to various other things, but opioid dependence is far and away uh, the biggest drug problem that we have in this country, with the only exception maybe being alcohol. Um, because of unchecked corporate greed, there was a large incentive for a very long time to prescribe uh, painkillers often, um, to anybody and everybody. Oxycodone was advertised to people, was as being safe for long-term pain management use, which it is not. And the pharmaceutical companies knew this, but it was highly lucrative, and that's why for a period of time, some I'm sure in living memory of people listening to this, um, you'd get prescribed some sort of opiate just about any time you had any amount of pain at the doctor or the dentist or whatever. And there was just it was nothing more than greed. There was no reason to prescribe these things a lot of the time. Um, and they knew full well that they were creating addiction in people, and they didn't care because they were making a lot of money.
Yeah. Like you can't advertise a pill as a panacea. That means cure all. That's one of the few medical terms I still remember. But you can't say something as a panacea and have no evidence or anything. Just printing it does not make it so.
Yep.
Lifelong pain management. Yo, you're not supposed to take a leave your entire life. You can't tell me something stronger than a leave is good for you. And like you talk about the greed. One of the worst things about it, there's been documentaries, there's been limited series, there's been movies about the Sakharov family, and they paid a fine, but there will be no more future lawsuits. They've paid out X amount to the cases. There is no longer a legal way to go after them because of the court settling. I wish I knew all the information right in front of me, but the important part is they had a major payout, which was a drop in the bucket for them because of all
Yep.
the money they made,
Yep.
and no more lawsuits can be brought against them in any capacity. So they started quite possibly one of the worst things that could have happened to this country, got sued by everybody, made a small payout, and
Yeah,
ruined, ruined, ruined 10% of America for a
entire
dollar.
communities were hollowed out by this. And we say all of this to say that while it is an incomplete picture to paint a problem of someone dealing with addiction as either being wholly a matter of their own unwillingness to change, or wholly a matter of like them being overprescribed things. It is an unholy amalgamation of both of those things and various other factors that um, leads to the sort of desperate behavior we see from people in the throes of addiction.
Uh, as someone personally who has come out the other end of addiction on more than one occasion, um, mostly alcohol, a couple other things in college, but mostly alcohol. I can tell you, it took me a certain level of bottoming out the last time because I built my life up pretty well, and I got to watch my now wife, deal with her husband, soon to be husband at that point. Wake up. Uh, this after my dad died, and I came back. Wake up, go get a bottle, come home, drink. And unless I was going out for the day, like at a certain time, it was wake up, get fucked up. Wake up, get fucked up. And she said something to me about it. And she did it in a very kind and sweet, gentle way. And it clicked like, you have beaten back this addiction before. You can do it again. You have a support system. Uh, Not everyone has a support system. So if you know someone struggling and they were friends, make that one effort where no one else is doing it, whether anything good comes up from it or not. Say something. Make that
Yeah.
effort. And that's just me being personal about like my my struggles. I mean, I don't feel the urge to do anything like I did before. I'm past that.
Hmm.
So when I hear people talk about I'm struggling, I tell them the same thing that I was told, and sometimes I say, "Hey, fucking quit doing it. Look at what it's doing to you. Do you like how you feel?" And it comes off like I'm being a bit of an asshole. A sweet voice isn't always going to be the thing to work. Sometimes you need someone to go, "Hey, I'd rather you not fucking die from something preventable. Let's get you into treatment or something." And some people like it, some people don't. But I'm glad I had someone do that to me before I met my wife years ago in school. I'm glad someone talked to me that way. And I'm glad my wife talked to me that way when she saw that I was going down a real dark path real fast, and became not the person she started a relationship with. So I just want to put that out there. This is not high horsing. This is not soapboxing. Uh, I had problems. I don't now. And I also want to say about people in recovery, if you're no longer using substances, you have recovered from them. You need to build yourself back up. This is my personal opinion. You need to surround yourself with people that are not in the same boat. You need to surround yourself with people that will be a support system, not in the same potential enabling position. It may sound shitty,
Yeah,
but if you're
absolutely.
always around the same people, that's like, I have a problem, I have a problem, I have a problem. You can have a sponsor, you can go to the meetings, but you need to step away from that at some point to come back to being a whole person. And I wish these programs would at least mention that as opposed to avoiding it. That's why I never did AA. That's why I never did NA. I did not like those aspects. Uh, I made my own mistakes. I fucked up. I had my bad runs, but I got over it and got through it. And It sucked, but I did it. And if you're watching this, you can too.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something important, which is that, um, you know, you're 100% right. AA or NA doesn't work for everybody. It's a very specific thing, and you're either in or you're out. But the fact of the matter is that you will need support if you're going to get out. Whatever that looks like, you will need other people to support you. We live in a highly atomized society. We live in a highly individualistic society. But the fact of the matter is, the only reason that humans became the dominant life form on this planet is that we are communal creatures that need one another to do anything. If you are struggling with substance abuse and find it really difficult to get out of that, and your entire social circle does nothing but drink when they hang out or whatever, then you'll need to surround yourself with different people, because we are pack animals, and we do what our pack is doing. So you'll need to find yourself a different pack.
It's scary doing that. Don't think we're saying it's easy. It's not.
No,
But
it's
if you want
terrifying.
out, you will find a way.
Yeah, you'll need to find you'll need to find people to help you. Don't buy it. I've seen plenty of people try to do those sort of things on their own, and they inevitably fail. So if it's not AA or NA for you, that's fine. It's not going to work for everybody, but you will need support to do it. And you can't be afraid to ask for the help that you need. I know our entire society is built around the idea about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and all that sort of bullshit, but that's just not how humans work. The other thing with addiction, and it will kind of segue into the other part of this, is that addiction is very rarely just you really liking how something makes you feel and wanting to do it again, right? It is usually medicating some sort of problem that you are not getting help with otherwise, right?
Yeah.
And because the big component behind this all is mental health, and it has become kind of a buzzword sort of thing. We talk more about it, but it is still we are still early days, I think, in terms of truly dealing with mental health in the ways that we need to be. We still
I think,
don't. Go
good.
ahead. Sorry.
As I say, I think you saying to make the transition, I think you should rip the Band-Aid off and lead with this one.
Okay. So the other part of this today, like the even bigger elephant in the room, is that Bo from both the Hardlore podcast and the band Harm's Way lost his life to suicide this past week. And if you're anything like the both of us, your social media feed has been anywhere between like 60 to 80% people talking about this guy. And they have nothing but positive words to say about him. And it's a devastating loss for the community. Hardcore is a very small community at the end of the day. And the thing is, it's so easy to look at somebody like that who clearly beloved by a whole community, seem to be in a happy relationship so far as we can glean from social media postings. I didn't know the man personally, had a successful podcast, was in a successful band, well-liked band. You These outward markers of success are not indicative of positive mental health, right? Like, you can have everything going for you, and oftentimes, like, we see that, right? So this sort of thing comes so often as a surprise because we take these markers of success and say, and we look at the people and say, like, well, why should you be sad? Look at everything you have going for you, right? But that's just not how mental health works.
Not
um
at all.
Depression, depression and anxiety, are two things that do not give a fuck about the circumstances of a person's life. They just don't care. Like, it just doesn't. Makes no difference. You can have it all, and it doesn't matter. Um, Sometimes those monsters are just bigger.
Yeah. Again, since we talked about being vulnerable on this, I can talk about this. I've talked about it before on stage, but very much in passing. But I have a bullet that actually has a date on it. It was going to be for my 35th birthday, or for my 36th birthday. If by my 36th birthday, if I made it all the way through year 35 and have not accomplished anything, I was going to be like, all right, I'm out. That bullet is still sealed. It is in an envelope, and it is a constant reminder because I made up my mind. And again, this is like 11, 12 years ago at this point, but I made up my mind if I have not accomplished anything, I'm just really wasting everyone's time, including my own. And that's not something, saying that calmly in general is very difficult for people. Saying it now in retrospect, it's still not super duper easy. But I like talking about this to show that me trying to run into death's hands at a very specific time was something that kept me from going into death's hands at a very specific time. Uh, that, along with some of my, at the time, addiction problems, also put me down some of those paths. Uh, Granted, it was not really involved in this particular run, but it is hard to look at, and that bullet is important. That is in no way, shape, or form nothing less than a very small permanent solution to what could be a very fixable temporary problem. And thankfully, things started working in my favor. I started working away from those insanely dark negative thoughts. But I still had the reminder to never go back to that. And I'm not suggesting anyone else do that. I promise you, please don't. But I'm sharing with you my personal thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
I
I will
I
say,
want people to.
um, just my own personal story. This was that, I had had my life well and truly fall apart for the second or third time, depending on how you count. Um, I had been living out in Colorado, um, lost a job, lost a relationship, um, all these sort of things, and ended up moving back in with my parents. And it is difficult in your late 20s to have to move back in with your parents because you have no other options. That another attempt at trying to make life on your own work for you failed, and you had no other choice. Um, and it was a very, very dark time. I remember talking a lot with somebody at the time about, like, why am I doing any of this? I should just walk into traffic. And there was a highway right by my house. I could very easily just walk in front of a semi. And I thought about doing that a lot. And eventually, I won't get into details, but help was kind of forced upon me. And I managed to pull out of that. You know, and now getting close to a decade later, um, my life is very, very different. You know, everything is turned around, and it's things did get better. I couldn't see it at the time. Um, but it's said sometimes that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I don't want to shame anybody for having those sort of thoughts. I think they happen way more often in folks than we're often willing or able to admit. But at the same time, if that is you, if you are entertaining those sort of passing thoughts on anything other than like a every once in a very long while occasion, it is, please find a safe person to talk to about them, and and be honest with it. Let someone else know. I have firsthand have dealt with the fallout of when people don't, and I I will confidently speak for every single one of your friends when I say that every single one of them would rather get a a panicky, tear-filled phone call in the middle of the night than go to your funeral.
Yeah. 1,000% true. Um, like we were talking previously, if you know us and you're going through some shit, you have a way to communicate with us. If this inspires you to reach out to someone who's been kind of becoming more and more distant, or if you see them just giving their things away, not selling them because they want to go on a trip, but just saying, hey, do you want this? If you see them never saying anything positive and just being really reclusive, you need to step up,
Mm-hmm.
make that painful phone call, make that painful trip to their house. You could be, or answer that phone at 2 a.m. You could be that person that keeps someone here so they can speak on a similar situation to hopefully inspire someone else to do the same thing to prevent something from happening. So that will inspire them to talk to someone to keep the same, to break the fucking cycle
Yeah,
is what I'm getting at. Break the fucking cycle.
yeah. Too often, this sort of pain is one that we, especially especially in men. I was raised a boy before I figured out I was non-binary. Men are not taught. The only emotion that they're taught to have is anger. It's the only one they know how to process or communicate in. Um, and you'll have to figure out a way of getting help that works for you. Not every therapy and every therapist works for everybody. Um, but what
Super
absolute
important.
what absolutely does not work is holding it all inside and never doing anything about it. That
It's,
the only
it's
thing that does is put you in an early grave, one way or the other.
it's very somber. Pardon me. As we were talking about before everything happened on the 31st, we were going back and forth about how incredible our prediction of 2026's musical output, how wrong we were. And it sounds like we're being glib, but we could not believe, oh, all these records are happening, these tours, all these reunions, all these crazy shadow drops, big bands coming back. And then 2 days in a row, two of the most catastrophic pieces of news in at least our world, specifically, not including the families and friends of those people affected, but anyone who's tangentially connected to them had to
Mm-hmm.
face the reality that uh, one person is no longer the person they once were and have become a monster in a lot of people's eyes. I can't say that I even know. I don't see him as the same person. I might see him as a monster maybe in a day or two. Um, just being honest about it. And then a friend to everybody is gone. Someone who brought a lot of joy into people's lives is no longer with us. That's two heavy blows back to back for a community that, like, yeah, we a lot of bands we listen to write about dark subject matter, similar to what we're talking about right now. As a stand-up comic, I make jokes about the similar content we're talking about right now. It can be my catharsis to deal with my own shit, but it's one thing to talk about it, process it, try to work through it, try to use it, whatever output there is to relate to maybe spark someone to break the cycle. It's another thing to be on the other side of it and wonder, did I help or hinder someone getting better? And then you have this guilt. And if you're feeling that guilt, you got to push through it. I do it. And if you're watching this, listen to this, if you feel like you have some guilt around something like that, you got to push through it. You got to keep reaching your hand out to people.
Yeah. You know, we as we were sending messages back and forth this past week about what should we talk about this. One of the things we landed on was this notion that, like, hardcore is what it is in a lot of ways because it is a style of music and it is a scene that, unlike a lot of other genres of music, does not shy away from the darker aspects of life. It is the thing that kind of draws us into it, right? Because so many of us are dealing with darkness that we don't have language for, that we don't have ways to articulate or communicate with others, but we see in hardcore a place to express that, to get some catharsis from that. Now, I think the problem is too often what we find is we know how to deal with the darkness and we just sort of wallow in it. What we need, I think what we need more of in hardcore, more of in general, is art that shows us how to push through to the other side. Whatever that looks like. It's good to acknowledge the things that you can't acknowledge anywhere else, right? Like, so many of us in found hardcore because we found pop music too shallow. But what we also need from our music is not just to acknowledge the darkness, but to push through to the other side of it. And I think hardcore is also one of the perfect places where that can happen, because it is unlike most other forms of music. It comes with community built in. Is it perfect? Fuck no. Um,
Not even remotely fucking close. We're a bunch of assholes. Let's be
for
honest. We can be a
sure,
bunch of fucking psychopaths.
absolutely. But um, you know, I feel like I'm rambling a bit, but this, I hope you see my point here. Like, yes, we got into this because we need to acknowledge the darkness, but we also need to push through to the other side of it. That there's a lightness on the other side of the heaviness.
It's not rambling when like you want to get the point across. So I don't want anyone to think that like us going into great detail about personal stuff is like us just talking to talk or to be self-serving or to be performative. Uh this I remember when Riley Gale from Power Trip uh took his life back in the COVID times. We're getting to close to 6 years ago at this point for the anniversary of his death, if it hadn't already happened. And as I don't remember the exact day,
It was in the
I
summer.
saw, okay, it affected a lot of people and that it brought a lot of attention to things. It brought a lot of attention to mental health. So something positive did come out of it, but what was missed was the continued aspect. to keep pushing to work on mental health, to have services, to show that there are places available. There's the 988, the suicide hotline. That is 24/7. I want to personally commend Dave Owen from Code 7 for constantly pushing that for people. It's uh, the few times he's performed in the last couple of years, but just with the stuff that he posts and telling people to reach out, like he has been. I've known, Jesus Christ, I really known him for almost 30 years. I've known him on and off for almost 30 years. He's changed the person. And since he started pushing the suicide awareness, suicide hotline, among other things, he has become a very big light for a lot of people just in the South, but also everyone else that knows him outside of just this area. I just want people to know that there are several of us in hardcore that will say, hey, there are options. Hey, let's find a way to get services started. Fucking something.
Yeah, I hope if nothing else, I hope what this does for folks is really open up the floodgates so that we start talking about this in a real way, so that we don't need to find out the next name.
Yeah, it's like that meme that was going around for a while, especially around again when COVID times was really the first time I saw it. It was, man, I wish it was we were back in seventh, eighth grade playing Tony Hawk when all my friends were still alive.
Yeah.
And I wish that it would be 2026 playing Tony Hawk with all of my friends still alive.
And
So,
you know, people, you're not getting out of this world alive one way or the other. But don't go anytime before you absolutely have to, because, there are people in my life that in both of our lives, you'll never get to be able to say you love them ever again. You'll never be able to have another conversation with them. And anytime before you, like, not sure how to say this, but that bastard death is going to get you one of these days. Like, no reason to make an early appointment.
make him chase you to the end.
Yeah. You know,
Make him mad that he has to take you. There, I got one good positive joke in. So
yeah. And to, it gets said every time something like this happens, but one way or the other, death's coming for us. I work in a hospital and I see firsthand how senselessly you can get cut short through no fault of really anybody's. And so the more that you spend as much time as you can reaching out to the people that you love, checking in on them, letting them know that you love them, that you care about them, that they matter to you. And I will say this, like, you never know what thing might save somebody. I remember a friend of mine coming to me once saying, like, all those late nights when we would do X, like, I don't think you realized it at the time, but you were saving my life. And, like, to me, it didn't seem like anything other than hanging out with my friend as he was going through some shit. It wasn't anything more than that. You don't realize, I think, we don't realize the things that really stick with somebody, the things that will really matter to somebody. Because sometimes talking somebody off the ledge is quite literally like the tearful phone call at 3:00 in the morning, and sometimes it is just showing up and having a cup of coffee and shooting the shit for an hour and telling them that you love them. And so often the mental health stuff can really feel like it can feel big, and it can feel too big to be able to do anything about. But I've experienced firsthand the things that kept me going were just the people that showed up and loved me even though I wasn't at my best, or especially because I wasn't at my best, and kept doing it. You know,
For my end, part of it, why I am still here, because I do ride for spite. I do not want the assholes to win. That is a recurring theme in my life. I refuse to let the assholes win. And taking accountability of myself, the good, bad, and whatever, I have work to do. And whether it's one person at a time, whether it's in a room full of people, whether it's the entire internet, I still have work to do. And I will do that work. Because if not me, who else? Not to make it about me, but there are people out there that will need someone. They will need someone to talk them off the ledge. Answer the goddamn phone when that call comes in.
that's the
Fucking,
thing too. You know, we anybody out there that might be dealing with these sort of darker thoughts, darker times, like I promise you that there's something that you can contribute to this world that nobody else can. You know, we need your perspective, we need your voice.
and don't, and to kind of add to that, speaking of the world, as fucked as everything is right now,
It's rough.
part of part of us winning, people that still actually give a shit about other human beings, part of us winning is not letting the assholes win. Part of it is us swallowing our pride from time to time and going, this this person doesn't need to be going through this. Part of it is not letting a force that is so great against one, telling them what they can and can't do, who they can and can't be, what their rules are, where they can and can't live. The thing is, and this goes back to even Sham 69, if the kids are united, we will never be divided. To make that into a broader message, there are more of us than there are of them. If all we got is us, reach out to one or two people. Be the person that helps break the fucking cycle. It can just be a text message. It can be a happy birthday on Facebook. It can be something. Just don't don't let the assholes win. Don't let the cycle of pain and misery continue. Even if you think you're not making a difference, I promise you, I absolutely promise you, from the bottom of my little heart, you are making a difference. Little things can lead to big things. Be that person. Be the person that can do it. So I don't think I really have anything else really to contribute
I don't
for this
either.
episode. Um, look up your mental health services. Check on your homies. Just do a check in.
Yeah.
Uh,
If you need help getting connected with something, um, you can you can reach out to us if you know us. Um, you can if you don't know us, you can email you can email the podcast email address. Um, trust that there are resources out there. Trust that the people in your life that love you want to help you would much rather which would much rather sit on the phone with you for an hour than go to your apartment and clean up your shit.
it's
You know,
easier to. Oh, I actually did have one other thing to kind of add.
please.
if if for some reason I think this is important, if for some reason something happens and you did not reach out to somebody in time, if you forgot to, life happens, I don't want you to beat yourself up.
Absolutely.
Don't let guilt be the other motherfucker to do you in. Don't let guilt be the asshole. Like I said, don't let the assholes win. I just wanted to put that in there real quick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If when a couple years ago on Halloween when a friend of mine took his own life, you know, our friend group spent a lot of time wondering about what we could or should have done differently. And the one thing I would always say to people when they would start down that line of questioning was I would say like down that road madness lies. You know, ultimately at the end of the day, There are going to be things outside of your control. There are going to be things that you did not see coming that, um, that you couldn't have done anything about. Um, you know, you can do your best and you can do everything right and still fail. Um, and that's just, that is just life. That it is, you know. So don't beat yourself up. Don't play the what if game. You will drive yourself crazy doing that.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. And part of that is, don't. I was reading a book recently. It said like, and it's a fictional story, and in it, someone someone dies, and another person is going, well, if I had just done this differently, and the person stops him and says like, this whole thing is painful enough on its own that they're gone. Like, don't add to it by torturing yourself about how you could have done things differently. And yeah, thanks for adding that.
All right. Yeah. I hope everyone takes this in the spirit that it's meant to be taken. If you know someone, I hope that we have helped inspire you to help someone. Uh, to everyone that we have lost along the way, you are not forgotten. I wish you were still here, and the journey still continues with those that have been left behind.
Yeah, yeah.
So, my name is Adam.
My name is Kate, and we love you.
Love you, homie.
Love you too.